Hi, everyone. Welcome in. This is Grow Your Boat, Scaling Your Master's Program with Lisa Stickley and Dominic Bardini. My name is Flavia DeLucas. I'm Learning and Development Coordinator Associate, with US Rowing. And I want to introduce our speakers. We have Lisa Stickley, who serves on the board of directors at the Indianapolis Rowing Center and brings nearly 2 decades of experience in accounting, finance, and entrepreneurship to her work in rowing program development. A competitive masters rower and a U.S. Rowing Level 2 coach, she blends business strategy with firsthand athlete experience to help build programs that are inclusive, financially sustainable, and performance-driven. Her work focuses on creating clear pathways and supporting athletes throughout their lifelong involvement in the sport. Joining Lisa in the session is Dominic Bardini. He is the founder and CEO of CrewLAB, a technology platform designed to help coaches and athletes manage teams, track training, and build stronger team cultures. A former rower and team leader at UCLA men's rowing, he has remained deeply involved in the sport as a coach, entrepreneur, and advocate for rowing's future. Dominic also serves as co-president of the U.S. Rowing Emerging Leaders Council, helping connect and support the next generation of leaders in the rowing community. His work focuses on using innovation, community, and data to help teams perform and stay connected. And with that, I will pass it to the two of you.
Cool. Thanks for the intro, Flavia. And I'm still a rower. I still row all the time. But the star of the show today is Lisa. I'm going to spend about half an hour asking Lisa questions about a very successful example of building a club, and then we'll turn it around to you all, to the audience, for about 15 minutes to get your own questions answered.
Yeah, super excited to be here, guys, and ready to dive in whenever you are, Dominic.
Cool. Well, let's get into it. So great
Yeah,
intro, Flavia. Thank you for that. We know a little bit about you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your club?
sure.
So
Yeah,
how is it
so
structured? You go ahead. You got it.
yeah. So I'm with the Indianapolis Rowing Center. Obviously, Indiana, not really well known for rowing. So we have one club in Indianapolis, not a lot of competition there. But we do have a very great, thriving club right now. We have a middle school program, we have a junior program, we have a master's program, and we're all just dedicated towards producing just solid rowing programming and just seeing how we can level up, honestly, every single day. That's our goal. So,
And tell me about like how many of each of those athletes you have, how many coaches, how do you coordinate so many different priorities at the same spot?
yeah, I mean, really, as far as programming goes, middle school, we're spending a lot of time and effort in social media campaign this year to try to grow that program. Roughly around 40 kids there. We try to have a kind of a coach per athlete on the middle school side of like 1 to 13, 1 to 10, something like that. Junior side, we've got about 100 juniors, and the coach to athlete there is like 1 to 14, somewhere along those lines, really trying to keep that small. Master's program right now, we have about 110 masters. We do have a pretty lofty goal this year to grow that pretty significantly. Coach to athlete kind of matching depends on the program. Obviously people who are in a more learning environment, coaching is a more 1 to 14, something 1 to 16, something like that ratio. On the competitive side, obviously you can go a little bit higher than that, 1 to 20, 1 to 24, whatever you've got there. So that's kind of the structure we're rocking with. Really one of the big goals that we're going towards this year is just making sure that we're having consistent coaching, really focusing on quality programming, making sure that people are walking in and walking out, being happy with what they spent their time doing. So really just kind of getting back to the basics is what we're doing at IRC.
Create a ton of value so people will stick around.
Yep.
How do you know? How do you know if you're doing a good job of that? Is there any sort of measure or behavior?
Yeah, honestly, it's retention. I think that's the easiest way to see if you're doing what you need to be doing. And I'm a big fan on surveys. I think, surveying people, going up to people, talking to your athletes, talking to your coaches, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? Sometimes even there's that one-off conversation that you have with someone can end up being an idea that you never even thought about. And then really just trying to explore, why did that person ask that question? And what were they looking for? And what answer were they hoping for? And is that something that we can do from a program standpoint?
So I speak to a lot of clubs around the country on a
Yeah.
regular basis through my day job, and I think a lot would agree with you. Retention, so important.
Yeah.
I would say that many don't have anything other than anecdotes to
Yeah.
support if they're retaining athletes. So, do
Yeah.
you have any tips, any clever ways of saying how measuring exactly 80% retention rate year over year, or is
Yeah.
it a little bit more of a feel as well?
No, I mean, I think, coming from a business background, I'm super big on numbers, and you have to have a way to track who's coming, how long are they staying, what are they signing up for? To kind of take a side caveat on that of, it really comes down to how are you structuring your programs that make it so that the adult rower wants to attend, right? What are you offering? So like at IRC, for example, we're offering multiple options. You can do a season membership, you can do an annual membership, you can come to 3 out of 5 practices, you can come to 5 out of 5 practices. We even recently rolled out punch cards. They're similar to a drop-in class for
Like a,
like a gym, right?
yeah,
So there's a 5 class punch card, a 10, and a 20. And because some people, coming in may be hesitant to fully commit to a season or especially an annual, but a punch card's a really nice way for someone to come in. So being able to see that person come in, track what they're buying, and then are they upgrading? Are they downgrading? And that information alone will give you volumes of information as far as what am I doing right in my club and what am I doing wrong in my club. So I think the data is powerful, and I think that a lot of times we get lost in the day to day of
yeah.
just executing the program and just and that kind of thing, and really not taking that step back of okay, well, who's here and why are they here and how long are they staying? And so really just trying to follow that through. And then, once you know that information, once you know who's here, how long are they staying, why are they here, well, then you can price around that, right? So, if you look at a normal typical gym, you go in and a drop-in class is the most expensive option. Well, that should be the case at a rowing club as well. And if you
Yeah,
have an annual pass, well, that should be your relatively least expensive per session type of
yeah.
type of membership. And then everything in between. So really looking at the pricing based upon what are people wanting and what are people buying from a membership standpoint.
And pricing as a behavioral change mechanism, not just
Hmm.
this is how much it costs. So here's the price, right? These
Right,
are the more sophisticated way to think about pricing for sure. And I think we
for
should,
sure.
if there's time. I know that there's a big case study we want to talk about in this call. I want to
Yeah,
get so we maybe I'll put a pin on the metrics, the data. That's something I'm really interested in. We can talk more about
yeah,
it. Um, I'm curious about, so I could be running my club, I'm nodding my head, yeah, yeah, do all these creative things, follow what the best businesses are doing in the fitness space. But I also am running up against a nonprofit board, and we've always done things a certain way. And there's a lot of resistance to change, and there's a lot of
hmm,
bureaucracy and red tape, and we don't do things. Oh, it's a cool idea, kid. Oh, wow, have fun with that. We do it this way. How is your club set up so that you can make big, bold, sweeping, experimentative decisions? And do you have any tips about getting through the inertia and the bureaucracy?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a really good question, and obviously every board is different. Obviously we're super blessed. I thoroughly enjoy every single person I'm on the board with, and enjoy working them more than any group of adults I've ever worked
Wow,
with, honestly. But you
I
know what
pray.
it came what it came down to was I know this sounds nerdy, but it was the numbers, and it's hard for someone to negate dollars, right? And so I think there's a concept in rowing clubs of it's a bad thing for us to make money,
Yeah,
especially in a non-for-profit. But the problem is in a non-for-profit, if you don't have money, you can't serve your athletes, and therefore you can't serve the community. And
yep,
so I think that we need to change that conception of it's okay to make money and it's okay to use that money to try to make more money. And by that meaning, bringing in athletes and having equipment that works and having boat houses that are nice. And because if you have that baseline, there's more that you can do and more than you can provide. So I think if you're going to your board and you're trying to give something that's big or sweeping, rather than tapping into the emotional side, tap into the operational side, tap into the financial side, because that's really hard to argue against.
yeah, yeah, totally. Um, I think that's a really good thing you said about again thinking about it like a business. You have to make money because if you're not making money, it's necessarily volunteers and it's necessarily up to the whims of can you spend Sunday nights and all these sorts of things working on it. If you
Yeah.
want to run a professional organization, there needs to be money in, money out. It needs to work that
Yeah.
way. There was another question. Oh yeah, so. I was involved in a few clubs here in LA that were doing some kind of benchmarking, and this club is charging this much, so that should be what our price is. Help us understand what you're charging, and I know every city is different, costs are different, but what are your programs? Explain your pricing strategy and specifically. This one is $10, this one's $50, etc.
Yeah, I mean, from a pricing strategy, it was really looking at obviously starting from what does it cost to run a session, right? So, and I think that that's hard for some groups to get to, but I challenge you to do it because if you don't know how much it costs to run a session, and even if you have a volunteer, right? Even if you have a volunteer coach, put a dollar figure to that because at
Yeah.
some point, as you continue to grow, you're going to need to know how much does it cost if I didn't have a volunteer. How
Yep.
much was the gas? How much is it for the launch? How much is it? Really take the time to get down to per session, right? And then then we took the layer of, okay, we've got per session cost. Now let's put that in the environment of someone who's learning to row. A little bit more intensive, needs some more coaches, needs some more time. Okay, well, that's a little bit more of a premium, and then obviously even on the high end too, from a competitive team practice, right? There might be more people, they're more skilled, but they're requiring higher level coaching. So you may have to put your top coach on there. So what is that going to cost? So from a cost structure, it's going to vary obviously club to club, but I really challenge people to look at it from the totality of it, and not just, oh, at this particular time right now, it's all volunteer run. So it's, oh, we can charge $5 a session because everything's free. Well, no, 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 no. We need to, I think as a whole, we're rowing is not competing these days for rowing. I know that sounds really weird. But in Indianapolis, for example, or in any city, even if you have multiple rowing clubs, you're competing for health and wellness dollars, right? So people have in their budget a certain number of dollars set aside for outside activities for health and wellness. So whether you get someone to come into rowing or to attend a group fitness class or to join Planet Fitness, they have a certain number of dollars they're going to go to do that. And we need to be pricing at a place that is competitive not only to other rowing clubs, but
Yeah.
also to other experiences that people can have in that health and wellness avenue, because if we don't do that, we're never going to stay on pace, right? And I think that's where some of the rowing clubs have gotten off, is that we're charging too little. Because
Yep.
also, when you think about it, a rowing session basically at IRC is 2.5 hours long, right? So it's a long time, and you're outside, you're using very expensive equipment with multiple coaches. So it's much different than being in an Orange Theory class with 25 people, for 1 hour. So we need to educate athletes that this is not just a 1 hour class. It's a 2.5 hour experience where you're going to have outdoor rowing, all these things, and it's going to cost a certain amount to do that. And I think as a group, one thing I would love is a collective shift of the rowing communities to say we're valuable,
Yep.
we know our worth, we can charge a little bit more. And I think if we do that together, set that baseline, I think we'll all benefit.
Yeah, you got to grow the sport. You got to grow everything.
Yep.
I totally agree with your mindset. And it reminds me of something I talk about with my business is, we're making an app for rowing teams. And one of our principles is don't compare ourselves to other rowing experiences, compare ourselves to the best products and experiences in the world. And I think
Exactly
that
right.
exactly what you're saying is
Yeah.
people have a certain willingness to pay and a certain expectation of experience based
Mhm.
on what other options they have for their time. And if you bring the experience, you can command the price as well.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of psychology to it too. If you go into a store and you see something in a clearance bin, you automatically devalue that item to a bit, right? Where if you go into a high-end store and you see the exact same thing and it's priced 3 times the price, psychologically you give that thing more value already.
You
So I
do.
think if we start to do that even from the learn to row, right? Where we maybe price the learn to row experience slightly higher. So then when we come into our clubs and the membership fee is lower than maybe what that 8 session was, or however many sessions you do for your learn to row, if you have that monthly or quarterly or season membership slightly lower per session, oh my gosh, what a great deal. I have to sign up because I already paid this much money to learn to how to do it.
Yeah.
I'm psychologically committed to doing this now. Okay, well then price it just slightly lower. And I think that the psychological aspect of I'm committed will increase.
I think that's right. And I'm just thinking about objections here. An objection to this is I want my club to be very inclusive.
Yeah.
Rowing is this hoity-toity rich kid sport, and I would never want to turn anyone back.
Yeah.
And to that I say, the higher you raise the price, the bigger the pool you have for scholarships. And you should
Exactly.
grow both. You should raise the
It's like,
price and have a huge scholarship pool with because you should open it up to everyone for their willingness or ability to pay. And a lot of people can pay more than they're saying they can pay.
100%. If you don't have members, then you don't have people that can donate. And if
Yeah.
you don't have members, then you don't have an outside community that wants to come in and donate. And if you don't have members, then you don't have people that want to give you grants. And I think, one of the big concepts that we've really been working on at IRC is it's corny, but I call it a pyramid. Okay. And I feel like in a lot of rowing clubs, the pyramid of intentionality and importance is off. And what I mean by that is that the juniors are, oh my gosh, all of this time and attention and money and resources need to go to the junior programs. And I say, whoa. And the reason why I say whoa is I look at it from a member base and I kind of look at it like a subscription model. Okay. So, and what I mean by that is who's your longest term customer? Your longest term customer is your master rower, right? They're going to be a rower till the age of 80. And if they come in their 20s, fabulous. That's a lifetime membership fee. A junior, on the other hand, 4 years. A middle school, that's your second tier, right? So that's your second tier of that pyramid. So that base of your pyramid has got to be the masters because that's where you're going to keep and retain membership fees. And the master rower, the adult rower, is also the person who has the money for the scholarships and for the donations. And they're also the people that are going to be there to help volunteer. So I really think that another thing I would love for more people to embrace in their rowing clubs is spend some energy and focus on your adult rowers, right? What do they want? What do they need? What do we need to do to get them to come in larger numbers? And I think if we do that, I think clubs, if you focus on that base pyramid of the adult rower, I think it's just to the moon for the sport.
There's this concept in business, as many of us know here, lifetime value of the customer. It's a function of what the price is and
Mm-hmm.
how long they stay. It's not just what
Yeah.
the price is, it's what the price is and how long they stay. You multiply those numbers and you get the lifetime value. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're spending less, then the lifetime value to get that person, you're profiting on that person, and you can invest those profits into other things in your club. And that's I see you thinking that way, and it seems like
Yeah.
a really good way to think about your membership. So
Yeah.
I want to change gears a little bit here.
Let's do it.
And I want to talk about there's a hero's journey here for you. There was a moment in your club when you came in and you decided it's important to grow this. It's important to change things. Why did it become important to grow the club?
Yeah.
And tell us the story of this structural change.
Yeah. Honestly, it was personal. So I just started rowing. It'll be 5 years in May. And I came in as an adult, obviously did the learn to row. And I always have this business hat on. And I went through the experience and it was a wonderful experience. And I'm not knocking it at all. We did an amazing job. I'm still rowing to this day because of it. But I always take a step back and I say, in a perfect world, what would I want this picture to look like? Right? Like, was my experience what I would have wanted it to do if I could do it again? And the answer to me was just no. And so I thought, okay, well, what do I need to do to change this? And there was a couple things. It was when you come in as a new rower and then you try to absorb into a team, that whole process, right, of absorbing when you're just out of learn to row into a new team is just really, really difficult. And it's psychologically hard too, to bring up the psychological aspect. Again, you get in a boat with people who may have been rowing for 6 months to a year, multiple years. you
It's early
know
and it's cold.
you you are messing up their row, right?
Yeah.
And so that in and of itself makes it so you as an adult, you don't want to come back, right? And it's not because you don't like it. It's just because I don't want to ruin these other people's time, even if they're the nicest people in the world, which they are. So that was really one of the big drivers for it, was just how do I make that experience better? And then of course compounding onto, well, how do I get more people to want to come in and do the experience in and of itself? So I don't know if you want to touch in on the social media stuff yet, or if you wanted to hold off, or what your thoughts
It's up
were.
to you. It's a tell us a story. I know that you made a lot of change in your Learn to Row program. You got 120 athletes. You kept them on the team. What
Yeah.
happened? How'd you do it?
So part of what I was thinking about was, okay, how do we get more people? And I'm looking around the boathouse, and even at the boathouse, everyone's looking at their phones. I'm like, why are we in the rowing? Why are we not tapping into social media? Why are we not doing this? Like, how people find everything these days is on social media. So I had some friends who are over in Sweden. I'm on their international indoor rowing team, and have been chatting with them. And they're like, yeah, we're getting into the social media stuff. We're going to start work. They're obviously national team rowers. They're like, we're really going to start a career out of helping clubs grow and do that through social media. And I was like, ooh, hey, how about you come over and do that in the US for the first time? They had some success over in Sweden, did a couple clubs in Norway. They were a little bit smaller. And they said, yeah, let's do it. So we set up a deal where basically they didn't get paid until we got paid. And so what that means is they fronted all of the social media campaign marketing up front. And they didn't get a dollar until we got a paying butt in the seat. And it's called Grow Your Club, and that's what they do still to this day. We're actually hiring them again this year to come back and do it. So had them do that from overseas. They actually ended up coming over. They did live videos. They did a landing page for us, all this kind of stuff. It was wonderful. But really just setting up the structure to execute that Learn to Row, and then obviously absorb those athletes after the fact, was really where a lot of work came in from a club perspective. So kind of tapping onto the actual Learn to Row experience, we completely revamped it from what my experience was. My experience was, it was 2 nights a week. It was an hour and a half session, and that was it. It was 8. And taking a step back, kind of looking at that health and wellness comparison, well, that's not going to work for like 80% of the people. And we needed to have morning sessions. We needed to have evening sessions. We needed to have weekend sessions. We needed to give people choices, because when you go to any other gym, they have sessions from 5 a.m. till 8 p.m. Well, obviously that's a little unreasonable for rowing, but it needed to be closer. And so we really focused on setting up a structure where people could come into the program more times, more dates, more experiences. And then the really big thing that was not in anything I experienced with the Learn to Row was the social aspect.
Yeah.
I think and I know people have probably touched on this in the conference so far, but I think the thing that we forget is that new people coming into rowing, they don't love rowing yet. Like, right? They don't love the sport, and they're doing this for a variety of reasons. But I'll tell you what, I think the biggest reason why people do this, they want friends. I mean, as an adult, it is so hard to make friends. And
Yeah.
I think that if we focus on that just a little bit more, so when we did the Learn to Row, we really tried to keep people together in their boats. We were running 4 to 5 eights per session, and try to keep those people together. Try to make
Smart.
them feel like a team. We had a big opening ceremony when all 120 people were there, and we played
Mm.
games, and we did boat terms and how to pick up a boat, how to sit a boat. And we did all of that to lower the anxiety, right? Because that's the other thing everybody has, is crazy anxiety. So you need to make it an environment where people are not so anxiety ridden that they're not even going to start. So doing that opening ceremony, we had a mid program brunch, come out, just relax, hang out. And then we had a closing ceremony where we held a regatta, and we invited people's friends and invited their families, and we
Great.
had medals and we had all this stuff. So, I
Great.
think it's just bringing in that social part, and just kind of lowering the expectation of, you're going to be good at this. No, you're not. But you know what? You're going to have fun. And at the end of the day, at the bare minimum, you're going to be like, can you guys believe what I'm doing? Like, to all of your friends and your family, and they're going to be like, oh my God, that's so cool. I can't believe you did that. I mean, so like,
Like an
and,
Olympian.
and who doesn't want to have that conversation with a friend or a family member or a loved one of like, guess what I did this week? I started rowing. And they're like, what? So I mean, I think just playing off that, especially from a new adult rower. And I think this is going to sound weird, but like, even the terminology we use, I think we need to modify. Like, when you're brand new, I remember walking in the door and like people were being like sport and athlete and all of a sudden, like, whoa, I am none of those things. I don't know this sport and I am not an athlete. Like, and so I think if we just make it even the terms a little bit more approachable, you're just here to have fun. You're here to learn. It's rowing, and you're not, that kind of thing, and change that wording just a touch. You can teach everybody all the details of the terms once they're in love with rowing. So that's just a little side note on how I feel about it. But sorry, I was talking for way too long there.
No, it's good. Really, really good stuff. I'm just going to reflect some of it back. Just the last thing you said, I think, especially in the endurance sports, again, I talked to a lot of coaches, running, rowing, swimming are the big sports, and it's all intense, PRs,
Mhm.
game, and that's great, but it's a sport. Like, it's a game. It's a game. It's
Yep,
fun. It's a game.
that's right.
Remember, it's a game. Sports are for
Yep,
fun. It's for fun.
yeah,
And all the high performance comes, and there's a joy in the high performance, but
yeah,
it's the joy that we don't always talk a lot about.
yep,
I think that's a really important point. Another thing
yeah,
that I think we did really well. So UCLA is a club program, and we have to do a lot of on-campus recruiting. And we adapted something similar. We called it the Bruin Novice Championship. And you're not
hmm
signing up to be an athlete, to be a rower, commit for 4 years and 5 a.m. You're committing to a 1 month challenge, and you join teams. And the teams are, it's like a mini Olympics. You join the New Zealand team, you join the Netherlands team, you join the American team, you join whatever, and you stay on your team for that month. And then it culminates in a regatta. And the teams are mixed, varsity and novice. It culminates in a regatta where you invite in your parents. It's parents' weekend at UCLA, and everybody has fun. You take pictures, and it's very similar. You're not paying
yeah,
thousands of dollars. You're paying a little bit, and you're just committing to just let me just try this out, and then you can have a strategy for keeping them all around afterwards. So
yeah,
I think there's a lot of really good things. I'm going to ask that you give us some specifics. We meet
yeah.
for 12 weeks, this time to this time. It's $100. We have this many people. We have these many coaches. Give us the bare bones specifics of how, if I wanted to run your exact program, what would I do?
Sure. Yeah, so it was about 4 weeks before the program started. We launched the social media campaign. We sold out within 2 weeks, and that was for 120 athletes. We went a little bit low on the price because we weren't sure. Had never done it before, but the price was $350, and it was for 8 sessions. So there were, in any given day, there were multiple sessions people could pick from, but you had to pick two. So we held basically two in the morning. We held four on 2 of the evenings, and we held a weekend. So you could pick two of 8 sessions, basically. One thing we did from a coaching standpoint was strategically held it in the summer so that we could have college kids and high school kids act as the primary coaches. And I think
Cool.
that was huge for the success. And I at first I hesitated, but the more I thought about it, I'm like, these high school and college kids have been rowing for 6, 7, 8 plus 9 years.
Yeah.
They're well in advance of even what I was had the experience at that point. They knew what they were doing. All they needed was the confidence to be able
And
to
they're
learn how to coach.
inexpensive.
And you know what? Honestly, they were happy to have a structure
20
where,
bucks.
hey, if I honestly, we set it up where you coach 12 sessions, you get free collegiate boathouse memberships, and
Cool.
then they got paid once they passed 12 sessions.
Nice.
So it was a great deal for them. They were hanging out with their friends. They were learning a new skill themselves. Great thing to put on their resume. So
Brilliant.
it was a really good thing to do. And I saw a question pop about coxswains, and how we approached that was we had the coach be the cox. So we had in an example where we had 5 8s out on a given session. We had one safety launch. Obviously, learn to row, you're not going very fast or very far, right? So one safety launch, they kept very close to the shore with other safety launches ready to go if need be. But the coach was actually the cox in the boat. So we did that so that people could hear and see, and the cox just would often honestly stand up in the cox seat to help coach. So it was a really interesting thing to see. You look across and you've got 5 8s with people standing up coaching from the coxswain seat. But it worked, and it made it for very successful sessions because each boat felt very intentional. It
Yeah.
felt Like they got a lot of time, a lot of attention, a lot of individual feedback, which that's what you want when you're starting something new. If you go to a gym or you're hiring a personal trainer, that's what you want. You want someone there right next to you telling you you're doing it great, or no, you could do it a little bit better, or great job. Let's try something new. Let's do it together. That's all you want. So a little bit different strategy.
No, I think it's great. I got my start coaching as a ninth grader at the Newport Aquatic Center for summer learn to row camps, and I think I did a good job, honestly. I just had one
Yeah.
season of rowing by me, and I stood up in the boat and I was sitting in the
Hmm.
cockpit seat, and I was saying, "No, do this,"
Yeah.
and it just works. And I think it fits with that relax on the high performance stuff. It's okay if someone stands up in the coxswain seat and it doesn't fit, so you sit on the top of the deck. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if
Yeah.
it fits your mold of what it should look like. It just have some fun with it for at least the
Well,
longer run.
totally agree. And I think the thing we did that also kind of built that confidence is, it didn't matter if they were a college kid or, a senior in high school or whatever they were. Everybody had matching shirts. Everybody had name tags, right? So that already
Name tags.
gives,
Love name tags.
right. So that already gives an adult a sense of comfort of, okay, this person may be young enough to be my child, but they obviously know what they're doing, right? Even just visually, if you're like, this is a person who I need to listen to. They have a radio and an earpiece and a microphone or whatever, they have a megaphone, so just giving that sense of security and really obviously always making sure that safety is the top priority, which we did. And, making sure that that was, utmost importance. If as long as people feel safe and they're having a good time, they're going to come back.
Um, okay, we've done a lot of really good back and forth, Lisa. I want to open it up
Yeah,
to the audience and
sure.
see if there are any questions. Let's have a conversation, audience. There's a lot of people after the program. What did you do with them after? Asks Matt.
Yes. Super, super great question. So, had to completely restructure our teams. So, prior to this, we had basically a competitive team and then everything else. And so I knew that wasn't going to work. And I think the goal of having one large learn to row is you take 120 people and you move them forward together as a group, right? So we made basically a four-team system: learn to row. Next progression we called foundations, which was basically an extension of learn to row. Then the third tier is performance, which is that person who's in between learning and the competitive team. And then obviously the competitive team. So making a structure and making practices that allow people to be in a boat that's appropriate for them was crucial. And I know a lot of people are probably thinking, I don't have enough coaches for that. Well, what we've done is we've put the foundation and the performance groups together. So they're being coached at the same time, but they're really being intentionally boated based upon skill level. So I think that has allowed this large group of people to be absorbed into the program without disrupting things, is because they're moving as one collective mass. And I think when you have learned rows on a monthly basis and people slowly trickle into your program, that's when they don't stay. They don't stay because they're not improving, and they're also bringing down other people that are currently in the program. And so they've got to have a place for those people.
There's way more energy if you build a cohort of people and
Yes.
then they get to know each other. And I think you said something else that's very smart. And I think Cam is going to be talking about the American development model later. But you need to recognize you have different people at your boathouse that have different
Mhm.
ambitions. Some people want to
Yep.
go eat. Some people want to just play. Some
Yep.
people are very basic. Some people are very advanced. And I think you
Yep.
do different offerings for different types of people. It can't just be
Yeah,
one mass group.
for sure. And I think no matter what you do too, I think it's good for all of us to go into our boathouse and really look around and say, even if I'm not going to do this big program and you are going to do monthly learned rows, it's important to say, what times are those? What days am I doing those? You know, are my facilities clean? Are my boats, even if they're old, do they work? Right? Because no one wants to go into a gym or a class or anything and work on broken things that are dirty and could be cleaned, or broken that need to be fixed. So, even if you don't do a 120 person learn to row program, I think there's a lot of benefit of us to just take a step back and say, is our product even good, right?
Attractive. Make it
Attractive, right?
right.
Yeah.
Make it
Yeah.
attractive. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
We're getting a lot of good questions coming in, so
Oh,
let's
sure.
keep going. Rita wanted us to talk a little bit more about coxswains. I can say one thing about that.
Mhm.
Don't buy coxed boats is what I would say about that. Learn how to scull, do straight fours, do straight quads, do doubles, do singles. I think that there's always going to be a limit to coxswains at masters programs, and we always buy eights and we always buy cox fours. Stop buying those boats. Don't buy those boats. Buy coxless boats. That's my take on it. But maybe Lisa, you have an opinion as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And honestly, that's I think the style of in the US of throwing everybody in an eight is something that should also probably start to slowly go away as well from a master's rower perspective. Yeah, I totally agree. Starting out with sculling and quads and obviously working in fours and things, your progression of learning is going to be faster. But there's definitely benefits to being in an eight as well. So
Jim has a question about how to make it easy for members to pay dues or fees.
yeah. Yeah, so we recently transitioned to iCrew. Before that, we were with Team Snap, and it's been a nice way to allow people to pay. Obviously pay from an app, pay online, things like that. I would really encourage people to get away from the checks and the cash and things like that. Just from a business standpoint, I think you'll find administratively you're spending so much time and energy getting that money collected and then versus just I know there's ACH fees or credit card transaction fees. Those are so commonplace these days. I think people are going to not have as much of a reaction to it as you think they will.
And you charge more and you give more value. And this
Yep.
is where I'm going to put a plug for my company, CrewLAB. We are rolling out payment features right now. So take a look at our app. It's coming very soon, and it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful experience compared to everything else that exists out there. Okay, this also made space for all levels of rowers and is helping with culture. Everyone has a place there and is less frustrating. Kudos to Lisa. We are lucky and grateful to have her. Oh, it's a shout out of Lisa. Lisa, you're great. Nice job.
Hey guys.
um, Missy asks if you only teach sweep in Learn to Row.
Definitely not. So we really focused on the eight for first strokes just because each session would have 40 plus people in it. So having to match having coach to athlete ratio being the most critical thing, eights were necessary. But the minute someone graduates from first strokes and goes into basically the next level, you're in a sculling boat. That you really just right out of the gate, making sure people understand and appreciate both sides of the sport. And also just so that then you can run a variety of boats and have that coach to athlete ratio start to expand a little bit as quickly as possible.
Good answer. Portia is complimenting the conversation and asking about any thoughts on how to balance tension of experienced ex-collegiate rowers and newer adult rowers. How can we create a good team environment in a way for everyone to grow together?
Yeah, I think that it's probably a little bit of a controversial answer for what your question is, but from a in the boat perspective, you got to keep them separated. Right? I mean, I think there's a time and a place where you may go to that high end competitive athlete and say, "Hey, I need you to do me a favor. I really want to show these people what it feels like to be in a good boat." But for someone to have to do that on every single day or even half of their practices, it's just not a reason why then that top end athlete's going to want to come back. And the same thing on the bottom too, as a person who's brand new knows that they're messing up the boat and they don't like that feeling either. So, having that nice blend of, getting people together in a boat that way, but not as often as maybe you would think that you would need to. And I think really where the focus needs to be, it's on the land, right? So have a social calendar that is out for the entire year. Set it and forget it, right? That's published. You send reminders to people, but that's for the boathouse. That's all adult rowers are welcome, right? So you build the community on the land, you build the time and the friendships on the water and the land, right? I read something the other day. It takes about 70 hours to make a casual friend. And you do that with proximity, time, and energy, right? It takes about 200 hours to make a very close friend. Well, I think rowing is trauma bonding to an extent. And so you put that on top of it. And I think if you can make an environment where you have people coming together around something that they enjoy, given it's a 2 to 2.5 hour time period together and add the social component, you got friends.
Yeah. I have an opinion about all this as well, being that ex-collegiate rower who has entered a master's program. Um, and frankly was I feel like treated pretty poorly. Like it was very antagonistic. The first club that I joined after college was you college people and you learn to row, and it was fight, 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 fight. And I think what you said is really good, Lisa, that there should be separation of the programs and unity in the social calendar. And if you are going to do something like a mixed boats thing to help everybody come along with you, that's where you can make it social. You can make it fun. You could be mixed boats regatta. It can be something goofy and silly on the water, or something like that. Not just like a hard practice where you're
Right.
mixing boats. It's. I think it needs to feel like something a little bit more social when you're doing that.
Yeah. It needs to have a little
And
bit more intention around it. Yeah.
yeah, and I
Mhm.
think what you also said earlier, Lisa, was good that there's a lot of knowledge in the collegiate rowers and the high school rowers that if harnessed can make the program
Yeah.
better. It just needs to,
Yeah.
you got to, the relationships got to stay
Yeah.
positive
And,
and
and
productive.
and honestly, the kids were so excited to become US level one certified. They were so excited to get coached by coaches. It's just a whole new experience for them as well. And some of them have ended that program and said, I may want to make this a career. Like
Totally.
I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know that this was this rewarding to coach
Totally.
adults. I didn't know what this was going to feel like to be a coach. And they were like, man, I may rethink what I'm doing. And it was just really cool to see them go through that experience while you had adults who were also going through this unique experience. And it just, yeah, it's a pretty cool, rowing's a pretty cool sport.
Well, it's cool that you can, especially if you're doing schooling or something. An 80-year-old woman can row
Hmm.
with a 25-year-old man, and it just works. It's not like
Yeah.
football where you're going to kill each other. Like
Yeah.
you can be in a boat together. It is
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the young generation can learn a lot from the old generation, particularly early in careers and the
Hmm.
non-rowing stuff. Like there's a lot of mentorship opportunity. There's a lot of
Hmm.
exchange possible, but the exchange is not just everybody rowing the same boats. It's
Right.
you relate in the ways that make sense.
Yeah.
Um, uh, we got time for maybe one more question. Who's got a question? You could even come off a mute, come off a camera, show your face on the camera. One more question. How many of the 120 Learn to Row folks stay at the next few years?
So we just did the program last year. So we kept 41% post the Learn to Row. Obviously, membership, we're just getting back on the water here. So we'll know pretty soon how many we're retaining. But I'm pretty confident. We actually had our largest winter training ever. So we had about 60 adult athletes on ergs all winter, which
Cool.
was a significant improvement from prior years. A lot of those people were from first stroke. So I think enrollment's going to be really well. If you can get people to erg all winter, they're committed. So
Mhm. That is true. That's the hard part. First
yeah,
Strokes, that's the name of your program, First Strokes.
yeah, that's what we called it. Yeah,
Cool. I like that you're even trying to package it a little bit, brand
yeah.
it.
But I think that does bring to another just super quick point of we really need to think of rowing as a product, right? And I think things like naming it something cool, doing funny things on social media. We need to draw attention and learn to row. It is factual. But is it something, if you were objectively looking at, would it be something you'd want to do? And similar to the concept of walk through your boathouse, is it a place you would want to come to? Are there even small things that you could do or get your board to do that would make the experience of whatever learn to row you're doing just a little bit better, just to kind of open that idea of small changes can make a big difference. And the social thing, just really tap into that social part,
I
right?
totally agree. I
Yeah.
think we're at time. Lisa, if anyone has more questions for you, how
Yeah.
can they reach you?
Yeah, so feel free to reach out. My email address is lisa.stickley@indyrowing.org. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram as well, and I'll be happy to talk to anybody and everybody.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Everybody join me in thanking Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks,
Thank
Dominic. Thank
you.
you, everyone, for joining.